This is Careers Cast, a podcast for students and early career professionals who want to develop a successful and meaningful long-term career in technology. I'm your host, Marcio Saito. Welcome to this episode of Careers Cast. Today we will discuss careers in product development, which is a big topic for the audience of this podcast. There is a strong correlation between studying engineering or computer science in college and getting a job at a tech company working on product development. This discussion will tie together that correlation so that if you want to build products, you know what skills you need to build. And if you're studying engineering or computer science, you understand how that can set you up for success as a product developer. The following conversation is based on an article that can be found in my blog site. After that, I will come back live and address the question that has become very common lately. How does the emergence of AI affect my career as an engineer working in product development? So make sure to stick around for that, and now enjoy the overview.
So you're thinking about a career in tech, huh? Specifically, product development? That's awesome. It's a fascinating world, and it sounds like you're interested in figuring out where you might fit into it all. We're going to dive deep today into this whole world using this blog post from Marcio Saito, kind of like a roadmap for anyone looking to navigate this world.
Yeah, what's great about Marcio's take on this is how he breaks down this complex landscape, all the different roles and how they work together. He starts by identifying these 4 key players in product development. So we've got engineering, product management, product marketing, and then, of course, project program management.
It's like a 4-part harmony, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each one is crucial to that final product hitting the market.
Absolutely.
So let's break down each of these areas a little bit. We've got engineering, kind of the builders, right? The ones with the technical know-how to actually make it all happen.
Exactly. They're the ones writing code, designing hardware, ensuring quality, the nuts and bolts of the whole thing.
The foundation of the house, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting how many tech leaders actually start their careers in engineering.
Yeah, it makes total sense when you think about it, right? I mean, they understand the DNA of the product from the ground up. And that can be super valuable as they move into leadership roles.
They know what it takes to actually build the thing so they can make more informed decisions.
For sure. And Marcio points out that a lot of these tech leaders, they have specific training in things like electrical engineering or computer science, which makes sense given their backgrounds.
Yeah, it's like that deep technical foundation really gives them a leg up. Okay, so we've got our builders, our engineers. Next up, we have product management. I always think of them as the architects, They take those blueprints and ensure they translate into the actual product. They're thinking about the big picture, the strategy, and making sure everyone is aligned.
I love that analogy. They're kind of like the CEO of the product, which is a phrase Marcio uses that I really like. They're thinking about the roadmap, the strategy, talking to customers, really understanding their needs, and translating those into a blueprint for the engineers.
Right. Like a good conductor, they're making sure everyone is playing in sync and working towards that same vision.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once we have this awesome product, we've got to tell the world about it. That's where product marketing comes in. They're the storytellers. They're taking those complex features, the technical jargon, and translating it all into benefits that actually resonate with customers.
That's right. They craft the message, they analyze the competition, and they make sure that the product really stands out in the market, especially in today's crowded landscape.
They're the voice of the product. And last but certainly not least, we have project program management. I always see them as the unsung heroes, keeping everything on track, making sure everyone's working together seamlessly.
Yeah.
They're the organizers, the communicators, right?
Yeah. Think of them as the conductors of an orchestra. Everyone's playing their part, but the project manager is making sure they're all in sync, working towards that same musical piece. They're managing timelines, resources, and dealing with any roadblocks that inevitably pop up along the way.
The glue that holds it all together.
Yeah.
So we've got our 4 key players, each with a critical role to play. But how do these roles actually function within companies? That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, because it's definitely not always as clean-cut as it might sound, right? There's no one-size-fits-all approach here, and Marcio really hits on how much the organizational structure of a company impacts how these roles actually function in the real world.
So we've got these distinct functions, right? These important roles within product development. But it's probably not always as clear-cut in reality, is it? I mean, how do these roles actually play out in the real world within actual companies?
You're absolutely right. It's definitely not always so black and white. Marcio points out how the specific organizational structure of a company can really shake things up in terms of how these roles actually function. He gives the example of a startup. You might just have like a single product technology person, right? Someone who's basically wearing all the hats, doing a little bit of everything.
Right, they're the ultimate multitasker.
Yeah.
Like the Swiss Army knife of the startup world.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that this actually reflects how product development used to be in larger companies too, before everything became so specialized.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
But as that startup grows, those roles, they naturally start to evolve, right?
Yeah, it's like a single cell dividing and becoming more specialized to form a more complex organism.
Yeah.
You go from that one-person show to having specialized departments, each with its own specific focus.
That's a great analogy. And this happens all the time, right? Like you think about the engineering team, they might start branching out into, software and hardware, maybe a separate team for testing, UX design, things like that. And then product management, which might have started under the engineering umbrella, it could shift to be more closely aligned with marketing, focused more on that go-to-market strategy.
So it's like this constant dance between specialization and integration, figuring out the best structure for where the company is at in its journey. Okay, so things get more complex, more specialized as the company grows. What happens when it gets even bigger? When you have multiple teams working on tons of different products or projects.
That's when the need for coordination just explodes, right? That's where those dedicated project or program managers, they become so crucial.
Right, because now you've got all these moving parts,
Yeah.
and you need someone to make sure they're all working together smoothly.
Exactly. And Marcio talks about this shift, how those project managers really become the glue that holds everything together, especially in those larger, more complex companies.
They're like the air traffic controllers of product development, making sure those different teams aren't crashing into each other.
Precisely. They're the ones managing dependencies, making sure communication is flowing, and keeping everything on track across all the different functions. And this is where Marcio makes a really interesting point about how the need for a formal project management office, a PMO, can actually vary from company to company.
So some companies might not even have a dedicated PMO. Interesting.
Exactly. He suggests that in companies with a more functional organizational structure where everyone kind of has their lane, their clear roles and responsibilities within their department, they might be able to function just fine without a separate PMO.
It's like if everyone's driving in their own lane, you don't
Yeah.
need as much traffic direction.
Right. Exactly. But if things are less defined, if you've got people shifting between different departments and projects all the time, then you really need those dedicated project managers to step in and make sure things are flowing smoothly.
To keep the traffic moving.
Exactly. And Marcio uses the term matrix organization to describe those less hierarchical structures where teams are kind of formed and dissolved as needed based on the project. And in those environments, those program managers are even more essential.
It's like they bring order to the chaos.
Yeah.
So we've talked about these key roles, how they evolve as companies grow, and how something like the organizational structure can really impact how they function. But let's get down to what this all means for you, the individual, especially if you're starting out as an engineer, and trying to chart your course in this exciting but maybe kind of overwhelming world of product development. What advice does Marcio have for those folks?
Well, the great news is that product development offers a ton of possibilities. Even if you're starting in a specific role like engineering, it's not a one-way street at all.
Yeah, it's exciting, but can definitely feel overwhelming trying to figure out which direction to go, especially at the start.
Absolutely. Well, the good news is that product development, it really offers a ton of different paths you can take, even if you start in a very specific role like engineering. It's not like you're locked into one track, right?
Right.
Some engineers, they really just love the technical side of things, and they want to keep going deeper, becoming more and more expert in their specific area.
They want to be the go-to person, the technical guru that everyone relies on.
Exactly. And Marcio talks about how in many larger tech companies especially, that deep technical expertise, it's super valuable. So you can move up that ladder, become a subject matter expert, maybe you're leading complex technical projects, or even really driving innovation in your specific area.
Yeah, so even if you don't want to go that management route, you could still have this incredibly rewarding and successful career just by becoming this technical leader.
Absolutely. But then on the other hand, some engineers, they realize after a while that, you know what, they actually really like the leadership side of things. They might enjoy mentoring other engineers, guiding teams, and using their technical knowledge to help others succeed, you know?
So for those folks, moving into an engineering management role, that could be a great fit.
Totally. They've been there, done that from the technical side, so they can leverage all of that experience to lead and inspire a team.
It's like they're using those skills as a foundation to build this whole other skill set, like all about leadership and communication, team dynamics, all of that.
Exactly. And Marcio, he actually points out how a lot of the skills that you develop as an engineer, you know, problem solving, attention to detail, that systems thinking approach, those are all super valuable in management roles as well.
It all ties together.
It does. Now, another interesting path that Marcio highlights is it might seem a little less obvious at first, but it's this transition from building the product to understanding the product, you know.
Oh, interesting. What does that look like?
So these are the engineers, right, who really start to get bitten by the strategy bug. They become fascinated by the bigger picture, the why behind the what, if that makes sense.
So instead of just thinking about how to build it, they're thinking about what to build, why to build it, who are we building this for?
Yes, exactly. And those engineers, they might find themselves drawn to roles in product management, product marketing, maybe even project or program management.
It's fascinating how those engineering roots can actually be a springboard to all these different areas within product development.
It's true. And the best part is, this isn't just theoretical, you know. Marcio himself is actually a perfect example of this kind of career journey.
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah. So he started his career as an electrical engineer, deep in the technical stuff. But over time, he realized he was becoming more and more interested in the whole product development process. You know, like, how are these decisions being made? How are products actually brought to market? How can I have a bigger impact? And eventually, that led him to transition out of his engineering role, and he actually became a CTO.
Wow. That's incredible. It really shows you that you can leverage that engineering background to create this unique path for yourself and really achieve amazing things.
It's true. And I think, honestly, that's one of the biggest takeaways from his blog post, that there is no single right way to build a career in product development. It's about finding what feels right for you.
That's such an important message, especially for those folks who might be feeling a little lost or overwhelmed, you know, just starting out. So for all those listeners out there, what are some of the key takeaways from Marcio's guide? What should they be thinking about as they navigate their own careers in this field?
Well, if I had to pick a few, I'd say first and foremost, embrace the fact that this is a super dynamic field. Technology is always evolving, right? Which means the skills and knowledge you need to succeed are constantly evolving too. So be a lifelong learner, you know.
Never stop being curious, never stop exploring new technologies, new ways of thinking, yeah.
Exactly. The second thing is to really take some time for self-reflection. Think about, what are your strengths? What are you truly passionate about? What are your long-term aspirations? You know, do you really thrive on solving those complex technical challenges? Or do you love leading and mentoring others? Does the strategy side really get you fired up?
It's all about figuring out what makes you tick, right? What gets you out of bed in the morning, and then finding ways to align those passions with your career choices.
I love that. And then the final thing I'll add, and it's something we've touched on, is that all of the principles that Marcio talks about in his blog post, they aren't just limited to these tech companies, right?
Right.
Like, yes, he's focusing on the tech world, but honestly, as technology becomes more and more integrated into every industry out there,
Which it is.
these career paths, they're becoming relevant everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing it already, right? Healthcare, finance, education, even those more traditional industries like manufacturing, they're all being completely transformed by technology.
Absolutely. So the skills and experiences that you gain in a product development role, regardless of whether you start as an engineer or another function, they're super transferable. So your options are really wide open.
So basically, if you're passionate about technology, about building cool new things, and you're ready to learn and adapt, the sky's the limit.
The world is your oyster.
Love that. Well, this has been such a great conversation, so many valuable insights for anyone looking to break into this field, or maybe even those who are already in it and trying to figure out their next move. So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this has given you a better understanding of those different roles, the potential career paths, and most importantly, that mindset that you need to thrive in this exciting and constantly evolving world of product development.
This is Marcio back live. I hope this summary gives you some clarity on the difference between functional areas and roles in product development. As promised, I want to now address the question of AI. In 2024, artificial intelligence is going through its hype cycle. People are starting to think that LLM-based AI can eventually replace most knowledge workers, including software developers. So, it is true that LLMs are now able to automatically generate code, and they will become better and better at that over time. It's also true that in the past 20 years or so, the advent of open source software created demand for a global army of software developers who mostly adapt, configure, and integrating existing code. I call that cut and paste engineering. I believe that over time, LLMs will decrease the demand for those engineers. But the great thing about new technologies is that historically they have always created demand for other work that we cannot even imagine today. So, if you are in college wondering if computer science will continue to be relevant, the answer is yes. You might have jobs that don't exist today, and you might be using AI as a tool to operate at higher level in the stack. So rather than fear AI, embrace it, become familiar with it, and use it as a tool, as I am doing in this podcast. That's a wrap for the episode. Please take the time to subscribe and share the show with your peers who might be asking the same questions about career in product development or the impact of AI. See you in the next episode.